down, you're free to start.
I would like to welcome everybody to the April 21st, 2021 Little Miami Joint Fire District Board of Trustees meeting. You have a roll call, please.
Mr. Hudson, Mr. Lamar,
Present.
Mr. Lancer,
Present.
Mr. Shelton,
Present.
Ms. Taylor,
Here.
Mr. Van Harn.
Here.
In your packets, everybody should have received a copy of the minutes from the March 17th, 2021 trustees meeting. Do we have any corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing none, I think Mrs. Kemner already had a couple that she will be changing in the minutes. So with that being said, I need a motion to approve the minutes from the March 17th, 2021 with the corrections. You have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes from the March 17th, 2021 trustees meeting has been approved. Okay, do we have any communications?
No communications this evening.
On to the clerk's report.
Okay, the March 2021 report that were included in your packet show at the end of March that the balance for the district was $709,865.44. The deposits received this month for the district consisted mostly of EMS reimbursements and some smaller receipts for we put under other income for things like plan review or CPR classes. Under expenses, through March, the average year-to-date expenditure would be around 25%. But as we discussed last month, there are several accounts or line items that are running higher, mostly because they are expenses that are paid upfront annually or that are mostly paid at the beginning of the year. For instance, liability insurance is paid at the beginning of the year for the entire year. Dues and fees are paid mostly at the beginning of the year and things like that. In March, though, some expenses that I did want to note under building maintenance, and you'll see that that is running at 32% right now, year to date. There were some repairs to the overhead doors and a purchase of 4 Microsoft Surface GoPros, I think, or Go2s that I believe are used in the emergency vehicles to track EMS information. That was a purchase from CDW government, if you saw that on the check register. So those 2 items were maybe a little different than you normally see before, but the rest of the expenses are pretty standard. So please feel free to ask any questions about the report or anything listed on the check register.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Cameron? We have a motion to approve the clerk's report.
I'll motion it.
Have a second?
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You take it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Clerk's report has been approved for month of March. On to old business. I guess the Gulf Manor issue is still, we should just, unless you have anything to say, we can go over. Okay.
I think the update from Gulf Manor was to be removed from the agenda.
That's fine. We will have that removed. Okay. Roger has asked for some time to talk about the turnout gear. So at this time, I'll turn the mic over to Roger, and the floor is yours. Roger, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I clicked it the wrong way. Sorry about that. Thank you. I'm actually a little bit excited and honored to put this before the board. Done a fair amount of work, and really what I think is an important effort that really takes care of our personnel and encourages their safety, and of course continues to serve our residents of all of our communities safely. I must say I can't take all the credit here because in the beginning of my research trying to help with this issue, I actually, somebody out there saw the meeting and the effort that we were trying to put together, and actually referred me to a company when I was looking at other ones, or an organization to help with the grants. And I reached out to them, and I was really impressed actually right away. It was an amazing fit. So I just wanted to mention that was my experience. I can't take all the credit because someone else actually led me to hopefully what I bring well today. I believe the company's name is called Lexipol, and it's firegrantshelp.com, or that's the other tagline. They serve departments of all types around the country, but I thought most notably, and I think I shared with all of you, that they succeeded in writing about somewhere between 60 and 70 grants for fire departments, police departments, and EMS organizations around just Ohio. And it's in the 180 million range or something. I don't have it all perfect, but they've been very successful, been around for a long time. And I think it's important that in my exposure with grant writing, because they're so focused on helping departments in this realm, their success rate for winning grants is around 65 to 63%, depending on 65% for PPE grants and 63 for like radios and that kind of thing. So that's really impressive to me, because a lot of grant writers will kind of be all over the board on what they're trying to help people with. So I really appreciated that. I figured there'd be a lot of questions, so I did contact Mr. Shelton, and I invited, you'll see Alma Kotick on our screen. I believe she's located in Texas. She's the representative that I've been dealing with, and I thought a lot of questions might come up tonight. I know I'll have a few, and it'd be better coming from her so that we have so we get the right answer, and I don't have to translate or try to guess on what I remember hearing. So I'd like to introduce you to Alma. She's down there on the screen. If I can, in my discussions with her, she has many sources that she can go to, but for today's discussion, I could adjust if we get into this farther. She was going to do a grant. She's recommending we do a grant for, let's see, let me get this right, for radios through, one grant for PPE, another one for the radios, and with two different sources. One thing I learned that's important to share, I think, is that she said early on, if you try to write more than one grant with FEMA, you drastically reduce your chances of either winning one or both if you do that. So she has more than one source that she can go to, and we're going to try to reach out to two different sources. Let's see, I forget which one was which, so I'll let her explain that. I did provide a copy of the proposals that she has to Mr. Shelton. So essentially, I'm going to use rough numbers now. To do the two grants normally, it would be $10,000, but $5,000 each. But as an incentive right now, they're trying, because the grant writing season for us is coming up, they try to get people signed up early, and there's a substantial discount if we decide to do this now and at least get the process going. And I'll let Alma explain that a little bit more. So but Mr. Shelton does have a copy of proposals. At least I know he should have received them today. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Alma. And if you guys have any questions, I may ask a couple. We'll go from there. Thank you.
Jenny, how do we get her in?
Yep, I am here.
Okay,
Hi, guys.
appreciate your time.
Appreciate you guys for having me today. So thank you so much. Really pleasure meeting all you guys and happy to answer any questions. So initially we had spoken about a couple of projects, and so one of the grants I suggested for the first of all for the radios was the Assistance to Firefighters grant, AFG, through FEMA. It is one of the best suited grants to fund this type of project and get a substantial amount of money through one specific source for going instead of going through multiple. The reason why is radios can be pretty expensive, and we're looking anywhere $3,500 per portable and then $4,500 for mobile. So, and if we're requesting, 10, 20, you guys can kind of figure out what the total budget will look like. We've been extremely successful with this grant overall. One thing I do pride ourselves in is that majority of our grant writers had at one point or another sat on the AFG grant panel, meaning they got to review these grant applications for FEMA and approve funding. So they know exactly what it takes to get such a project funded. And we've been, like I said, Roger had mentioned, we've been extremely successful in Ohio, especially getting some funding, substantial amount of funding from FEMA for various projects. Communications alone, we have a 63% success rate. And I can kind of show you guys, I'll see if I can share my screen real quick. I want to show you a little list of all our clients. So bear with me just a second. Here we go. All right, let me know if you guys are able to see my screen.
Yep.
Yes.
Fantastic. So this is just a little background that I've shared with Roger, and I'm sure he's shared that with you guys and happy to share it. It's basically who we are. We've been helping departments for a very long time write successfully grants. As you can see, here's our overall AFG success rate, and that includes vehicles. So this is every single project category. And then as you can see on the bottom here, 65% for turnout gear and PPE, and then 63% for communications projects. But here's a list of all the departments we've worked with so far. Franklin, City of Franklin, and Franklin Fire Department, we actually were really successful with them. They got $1.2 million in grant awards. And when I called the chief to congratulate him, he's like, yeah, but how do I spend all this money? And I was like, well, give it to me then, if you don't want it. But he was really stoked that he got a really, great turnout. And that was the first time that we worked with them. And that was in 2018. And we've been working with them since. But you can see kind of Liberty Township is another one that's a very loyal customer and client of mine. Harrison Township, as you can see, Greenfield. List goes on, Bristol. And I'm happy to, share contact info. I know our clients rave about us all the time. They constantly come back to have us write more and more, grants for them. But that kind of essentially in a nutshell gives you an idea who we work with. The reason why I suggested going through two different sources for the two projects that you have. So turnout gear itself can be pretty pricey ticket item, even though we're not requesting a whole lot. But the portable radios, are going to be requesting basically the number of radios based on the number of seated riding positions that the department has in its frontline apparatus. So however many seat belted positions we have is how many radios we're going to, request. When we crunched the numbers, the ticket item came up pretty substantial, and I didn't want to jeopardize your chances at getting funded. A lot of times what we've been noticing since a year ago is that anytime a department asks for 2 projects or 3 projects, and historically with FEMA, if you kind of have a bucket list of items or what they claim as is a wish list, they typically tend to reject the application right away before it even makes it to a human to review it. So to give you guys the best odds, we suggested splitting the projects up, either applying for, radios now and then the turnout gear later, or going through multiple sources at the same time to get this funded. Another thing I wanted to kind of mention too with the turnout gear, typically FEMA asks that the turnout gear being replaced is at least 10 years old or older. However, they also have a new criteria added to it, which kind of essentially deems it a little bit tougher to get funded nowadays. So they're looking also at the purchase reason. And what a purchase reason essentially is what is the condition of the turnout gear being replaced? Is it worn and torn? Is it substantially damaged? If so, they will consider funding it. If not, it'll be a medium funding priority. And historically, medium funding priorities don't necessarily make it to the top of the funding list. Typically, FEMA runs out of funding before they even consider medium and low funding priorities. So they first spend the money on the high funding priorities, which your radios are, and then they trickle the money down to the lesser one, which historically never happens. It's just the fact they run out of money. Now this year, there is kind of good news with the AFG grant cycle as far as money goes. There's a lot more money and funding available through that grant program. Historically, it's about 312 million that they would award nationwide per cycle. This year, it's around 380 million. So we're looking at a lot larger pot of money as well. So that was a suggestion as far as AFG goes. So for the turnout gear, we recommended the Firehouse Subs Foundation grant. Reason why is they usually fund, or they typically fund only life-saving equipment, meaning turnout gear, stuff like that, that's gonna save the lives of the individuals providing the service, meaning fire members, as well as, protect and serve the community. So that's kind of what they're looking at. Right now, they're awarding up to 50,000 per application request, and they have kind of limited their number of applicants that they're accepting because they bumped up their award amount. It historically was only around 25,000, so they bumped up, increased the the funding or the award money, but they are receiving a lot less applicants or considering less applicants. So typically, the grant cycle will start, the one that we're just looking at, it just basically will be opening up here shortly, and it closes on May 12th. And they will only consider the first 600 applicants that they receive. So it's a first come, first serve kind of basis. Good thing about Firehouse Subs is they have 4 quarters. So if we don't make it this quarter, we still have another quarter to go after. And I think that one opens somewhere in June, July. And at this point, I want to turn it over to you guys. Hit me with the questions. Happy to answer anything and everything that you guys may have. Want to make sure that this is really a successful story for you guys. You can see my client list goes on, and I want to keep it that way. So I want to make sure that every department we work with is extremely successful when it comes to funding. So I turn it over to you guys.
Do we have any questions?
I'm interested in the typical local match requirement so that we can evaluate the investment in the grant.
Great question.
Writing question. Yeah, okay.
Great question. So there is, with the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, AFG, there is a match criteria, typically starts at 5%. So it's based on your jurisdiction population size. So if your population size is from 0 to 20,000, it's only 5%. And if it's over 20,000 to 1 million, it's 10%. And then if it's over 1 million and so on, then it's 15%, but it's no more than 15%. Now, once you've been awarded, the department has up to a year to accept the award and come up with that remaining amount. So let's say, what happens typically is FEMA will award up to 95%, but the department has to come up with the remaining 5%, which if you think about it, 180,000, that's not a whole lot, if that's the total budget for the radios. Firehouse Subs, on the other hand, does not have a match. So it's 100% grant funded.
Alma, could you tell them about the FEMA policy of some reimbursement in the event that we win an award?
Happy to. So there is a reimbursement portion for grant writing. Essentially, if you guys are successfully awarded, FEMA will reimburse you up to $1,500 max back towards our grant writing services fees. So there's a good chance of getting some of that money back. Hence why we love this grant. It's been one of our biggest projects each and every year. We've been extremely successful, and we pride ourselves in really executing this. This is what we do.
How on the radios if you are saying, here's what I thought I heard you say, that FEMA, if we look at looking at the FEMA grant, that you said that FEMA considers radios a higher funding priority, and so that you would recommend that go to FEMA. So you explained to us what FEMA is looking for in terms of the PPE, but what would FEMA be looking for on radios? Is it age? Is it condition? Is it we don't have as many as we need for our table of org? So that we can understand whether we might fall into a likely to be funded. For example, on the PPE, we know the age of our gear and the condition of our gear. So how can we shift that criteria to help us understand on the radios what they're looking for, so that we can look at our ages, conditions, and those other factors and see if we think that we might have a chance?
Happy to. I'm actually going to show you criteria here real quick. So with the radios, it's typically we're looking at 10 years old or older is the age of the equipment that will determine eligibility criteria. So that gives you a little kind of heads up on that. Another thing they're looking at is issues with communications. Communication is really big, especially now with COVID. It is very much of a high ticket item. So that is another thing that they're looking at as well. That will determine the criteria as well. So any type of communication project, and again, it has to be 10 years old or older. If there's any issues or gaps with your communication, if there's any instances that have happened district-wide, such as accidents, you name it, because of lack of communication or the radios were not working, or if your radios are no longer, eligible for replacement, meaning, or, parts cannot be replaced, meaning they're just so obsolete. They will consider that funding. And then also, if you don't have enough radios, that's another issue. So, you're sending members out into a fire without a radio. That's a critical issue, and also jeopardizes your compliances issue. So, and staying in compliance. So that's one of the things that they will consider funding. Here's a list, if you're able to see my screen. So these are all high funding priorities, and I can show you where the communications are. PPE obviously is listed there too. But again, and typically everything used to be 10 years old or older, but as of recently, with the PPE, it has changed. They also want the purchase order or purchase criteria, purchase reason, meaning is it worn and torn along associated with the age of the equipment. But strictly for radios, we're only looking at the age. So are they 10 years old or older? Then absolutely they're deemed a high funding priority. And again, you can see right here as far as the high. And I can kind of scroll through the list. I think on the bottom it provides the information as far as, again, what the age. Does that answer your question?
So I have a question. I'm a little unfamiliar with fire department grants. You mentioned that we are responsible for providing a condition assessment of our PPE and radios, for example. What does that assessment look like? So I think we know the condition of it, but is there an official template we use, or do they take our word for it? I mean, what's that? look like?
Great question. So typically what we do is we have our own documents that we have drafted and created with the help of FEMA guidances and staying in compliance with them to collect information on your current inventory. So when looking at radios, obviously we're just strictly looking at age because that's all FEMA cares about. So if they're 10 years old or older, automatically they're deemed high funding priority. They'll be put in the bucket to be considered for funding. Turnout gear, however, what we've done with our clients is also ask for pictures along with the age and inventory. So not only are they providing us full inventory list of all their turnout gear and PPE with what their age is, they're also providing us with pictures that show specifically how damaged the equipment is, worn, torn, and we actually have compiled that together into the application and submitted that on their behalf. As a supporting kind of system to just justify and show that it is definitely in need of replacement.
Okay, so with that being said, you're saying PPE gear, 10 years is a priority as far as getting fundings. But if they are like small departments, we don't use them as much, chances are of no damage or anything like that. Do they take that in consideration?
They will not, because again, they, will at that point to kind of want to guide you in other sources to get funding because they really want to focus on those that are really crucial and critical. So what has happened is over the years, so many departments are coming to FEMA each and every year for turnout gear. So their, turnout gear runs out, their cycle is 10 years old and they automatically apply to AFG for FEMA funding. And FEMA just said at one point, this is too ridiculous. We're getting too many applicants for the same stuff. This, gear can be repurposed. It can be still used. It doesn't have to be, there's no cutoff time at 10 years. They recommend that you replace it to stay in compliances, but it still has a life cycle for another at least 5 years, typically. So what they will do
life
is
cycle would be 15 years.
Exactly. So what they, at the end figured out is we'll just focus on those that are really in critical need, that are really crucial, and we'll help those first versus any of the other ones. So it's not that they want funded, it's just that fact that they will consider them, purchase reason. And even though it's 10 years old or immediate high funding priority, but the condition of it is still really great, then at that point it drops down to a medium funding priority, which typically never has been funded. And as long as I know. So like I said, they typically run out of the funding on high funding priority items first before they even get to the medium and low.
Okay. Great.
A great question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Carson, I have one. Did I hear correctly that the district would have up to a year to accept the FEMA grant, and what would be the time frame on accepting the Firehouse Subs grant? Firehouse
Subs typically, again, you accept it automatically. It's a little bit lesser cycle. Typically, we're looking at they award it within. Typically, you'll find out within a month to 2 months if you've been awarded or not. And at that point, they just automatically cut a check and you have it readily available for you to purchase the equipment. They don't have any of the compliances issues or criteria like AFG and FEMA does as far as the age of the equipment or any of that. They might just ask for short little reports towards the end of the cycle, which is typically 6 months. To kind of look at, what the money was spent on. That's about it. But like I said, it's a really easy process versus with the FEMA one, you have up to a year to accept it, come up with the match criteria. And then, you have another year to spend the money pretty much and purchase the equipment and then report back to them as far as what it was purchased on. And at that point, I would recommend keeping a tab of the whole inventory list of items purchased.
Any other questions? Okay. This is going to take a process. When do we have to let you know if we want to do this?
Great question. So we have currently a discount. It's a AFG 50% discount, which is one and only time that we are providing that. And it's through the end of April. Reason why we have provided that discount is to encourage departments to come on board earlier so we can kind of get everything in place, really get them in great shape and be ready for the application submission, especially making sure that we go over all the administrative requirements and get help with setting up SAM.gov registration, as well as FEMA Go portal systems and all that good stuff. Historically, overall, I feel like there's a lot more successes when departments get on board earlier because we have that time. It's not as stressful for everybody involved. We always do an outstanding job no matter what, but I feel like it's less stressful for everybody involved because there's definitely a lot of data collection that we will require and need in order to complete the application. And this includes programmatic as well as data, collection, data portion of the application information.
So this is a discussion that we can have and then let you know within the next couple of days if we want to go through with this, correct?
Correct. So on that 50% discount for the AFG, it's through the end of the month. So I needed to, that's when the promo expires. However, on the Firehouse subs, that is already quoted as is. We don't charge more than $2,000 for, or however the amount is on the proposal. We don't charge any more than that for a foundation grant. We have a substantial discount on foundation grants.
Okay.
And Alma, did you mention, I may have missed it, if we win the FEMA grant, we actually get a reimbursement on some of?
Yes, correct. The $1,500 reimbursement max back towards grant writing services fees. And that's all that FEMA will allow. They do not allow more than that.
Well, that's a rare thing to even reimburse a grant.
Correct.
So.
That is absolutely right. And there's not that many. Actually, FEMA is the only one that does it. So they have the Homeland Security grants. Obviously, first of all the fire, which is the SAFER, AFG, and FPNS, which is the Fire Prevention Safety Grant. And then on the other side, they have also Homeland Security and then Port Security grants as well. And they do the reimbursements on those as well. And it's always $1,500. That's kind of the standard. So. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
If our first application is not approved, I know I've previously did a lot of federal grants, and so I appreciate the heavy lift that you have to do, and it does take a lot of expertise. So in my experience with federal grants, if we were not awarded funds, we had the opportunity for a call with the grant manager, grant program manager, they would generally tell us what was the weakest point or two about our applications. And then if we had the ability to address that or correct that, we would come back. Do you have that? I've not done fire. I've only done other federal agencies. So do you have that experience with FEMA or these other agencies that we would then come back to you? Is that the same price for a second attempt when only one or two things may have been changed in the app, or is there a consolation round price, or how does that work?
Great question. So yes, we absolutely, anytime there is a turn down or anything like that, again, like I said, we really do our best to get it the first time around. But sometimes FEMA does run out of funding. You never know what the issues may be. So yes, we absolutely will take that turn down and we will inquire with FEMA, with the grant managers, to provide us specific reason as to why it has been turned down. But not only that, we also will do another round of internal reviews as well over the entire application, provide you all that information. At that point, either A, you guys can come back to us for a one-time complimentary review and submit the application on your own, and or if you guys want us to do it again, then we will obviously assess the cost of fees. Obviously there's always going to be a fee associated with that, and typically we're looking around the same amount maybe a little less depending on if there's, any issues on our behalf or our end, but typically you won't see that happening because we really do an outstanding job, and we pride ourselves in completing all these projects successfully. So, but great question. We definitely will inquire and, make sure that we have the reasons as to why it was turned down. And it, at the end of the day, if it's just because of lack of funding on FEMA's half, then at that point, we'll use the same application and apply it again for the following cycle. And then it has happened before in the past. And then the next year they were successfully awarded and given actually at times even a lot more than we requested. So, but yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we appreciate your information, Alma.
Absolutely.
And we will let you know what the decision is in the very near future.
Fantastic. Well, I will, I did not send the original agreements yet to Mr. Shelton, and I'll actually make sure that I do so as well, which will be the DocuSigns, but I did send forward the copies too as well. So I'll send those over here in a jiff, but let me know if you guys need anything else, have any questions. Feel free to either, communicate to either Mr. Shelton or Roger. Either way, I'm happy to answer whatever concerns, questions you may have. Okay.
Right. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so much. I really
you.
appreciate
Thank you.
your attending tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure speaking with you guys. Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
So with that, Mr. Avis, I guess you may have to help me out with this, but I'm going to make probably a simple motion, and then you got to help me out make this right. I'd like to make a motion that we do approve an appropriation, vote for to approve up to $4,500, which is the total here, I think, of the two proposals. And then with the hope that if we win the FEMA, we'll get $1,500 back. And part of it's the motivation to do it now is to be awarded the discount that they're offering. Now, I know there's going to be some legal mumbo jumbo I don't know, but I'm making the motion and you're welcome to correct me. Okay. So thank you.
Fortunately, I majored in mumbo jumbo. So
Okay. I think I'll need a second before we say anything. Anyway,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Actually, I think the way you stated the motion is fine. And if there's a second, then we can open it up for discussion.
I'll second it.
Yep. So open this for discussion. I mean, what's the board's opinion and what's your feelings?
I personally prefer the idea of bringing someone in with expertise in this area of grant writing. If the model for us moving forward to fund some of our capital expenses is through grants. It's as simple as that to me. I'm not, it's just the expertise. It appears to me that this potential grant writer has a wealth of experience, proven experience with neighboring fire departments. I saw the city of Norwood on there. Deerfield Township, I believe, Liberty Township.
Liberty, big one.
Yeah. And
Harrison.
yeah, I think it just makes sense for us to go this route. So I'm supportive of it. To me, the potential benefit vastly outweighs the cost. Not saying that $4,500 isn't substantial for a fire department of our size, but I think we do have real needs here. And if this is the mechanism, the vehicle to best position us to start upgrading some capital expenses over the short term, I'm supportive of.
Chief, question for you. When we were talking about the equipment, and I know you said it in the past that, yeah, some of the equipment, the turnout gear is over to 10 years. What are we looking at?
I don't think so. I thought The average age of our personnel's gear is 5 to 7 years. None is past 9.
I don't believe that's what I came up with.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. I mean, a majority of our gear is 2009.
Yeah.
But we did find out that we did purchase, and I was going to bring this up in my report, but I'll bring it up now, that we bought 7 sets of gear in late 2017, early 2018. I did have firefighter Higgins get with the vendor that we used in the fire gear, and if you wish, I can give you the prices now, or I can wait till later. So
You can go ahead and pop the prices out here.
okay, all right. For the best, what they call their top of the line, it's $25.66 a set. That's for the coat and pants. The middle grade is $23.60, and the lesser grade is $22.13.
So that's
Terry, does that include, Chief Timmers, does that include the helmet and the
Gloves.
mask? Like
No,
all
no, just
the
coat
coat
and
and
pants. Yes.
So I guess my question is going to be, okay, we have, and you're saying most of the equipment is 2009, 2010, something like that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 10 or 11 years. The 2,000 that we would spend on that, is that, like you said, the equipment that we have is not damaged. It's not, other than being washed probably more than normal. We don't have any damage. The chances of us getting the grant might be hurt by the non-use of the equipment. Do we
Correct.
spend the $2,000 for that now? But and Roger, don't get me wrong, I appreciate everything you've done. I think you've done an excellent job on this. This is something that we, as I told you earlier, that we need to have into the future, starting, I mean, now to work on. But do we want to spend the $2,000 now when there's that good possibility that we are going to get rejected because of the conditioning of the equipment?
Well, I think there's another way to
Videos,
look,
I understand.
there's another way to look at this, is that in some of our discussions, we've kind of agreed, I think, that we want to get into a cycle of purchasing equipment on a regular basis. So if we go through this process with somebody who actually has expertise, that gives us the forms, gives us the guidance, gives us the motivation to do it, and we find out that we may have 3 sets, but that begins the cycle. I think it's still money well invested. And remember, if we win it, we get $1,500 back on the FEMA grant. So I think intrinsically, it's still a good effort, and not just wait until
The
we think we're
FEMA
in a better
grant, correct me
position.
if the FEMA grant was for the radios, correct?
You're correct.
She recommended the FEMA grant for the radios.
Yes.
You're
But-
correct. Sorry about that.
With the $2,000 that we would spend for this grant, and the what she had said as far as the shape of the equipment and everything else is going to be also a factor in if we would get the money. So, I mean, there's something that we need to be looking at in the next year or two, as far as putting in grants for more money for the gear is one thing. But if there's a chance that we're going to pay $2,000 this year for that grant, and my expectation is that we would probably be turned down because of the equipment of the gear, because like Chief said a couple months ago, the equipment we have, it's out of range, out of the year range, but the equipment itself is in excellent condition.
She also said, which was interesting, that the grantors consider the typical life cycle 15 years.
Right.
And we're at just entering into 12.
Correct.
So it sounds like, yes, we should program a service like this for maybe start in 2 years, such that when we have gear that is hitting that 15-year point, or if we have incidents and we have gear that is damaged, we would kick into gear, but it seems like we should shift to the radios, but she said the same thing about radios, highest priority for 10 years or older. And I don't recall from any of my notes what.
I think if I remember right, the chief also said that the radios were coming to a point they were obsolete.
Radios, as when I spoke to Mobilecom, I believe, about when I did the asset inventory, and I believe I reached out to another vendor. What they communicated to me was that the manufacturer is no longer making the component parts of the radios. So if and when they break, unless we find another radio of the exact same model on a place like eBay and part that radio out, our radios are obsolete. They cannot be replaced, or they can't be fixed.
And she said that was eligible. She said that was an eligible if they're not 10 years or older or have communication issues. And then she went through that list and that was one of them.
Yes.
So that's great.
He's not said in the past, I think radios to me are the top priority. If we could go for a grant and get, I don't know, Chief, how many radios would we have to get? She said per seat, whatever that means. I mean,
if she's talking per seat, I mean, there's only 4 seats on each truck, so we're only talking about 8 radios then.
8 radios.
If that's what I'm getting out of it.
Does it include the follow-up vehicle too?
I don't know, Roger. She said first out vehicles. If I heard that correct.
Seated.
I thought I heard it was follow-up too, but you can double check me.
Well, we only have usually 4 per station on duty at the same time. So I would assume that they would take that into consideration as per seat, my opinion.
Well, why did Deer Park Silverton buy 18 of them? Do they have more staff than Little Miami?
They bought them themselves. So
I know, but why would they buy? They bought 18 when this grant is recommending only 4 seated.
Yeah.
Well,
and that would be 8 for us.
I think it's because they want some in reserve as well.
Correct.
I mean, that's more than double.
Yeah.
Hey, Terry, how old are the radios?
Oh my God, Alan. I would say they are at least over 10 years old.
Okay. So it certainly sounds like you have a good shot on the radios.
Yeah.
Correct.
Less so on the turnout gear. And even if you get the FEMA grant on the radios, you still have a lag time in which you have to spend the money. So depending on circumstances, you don't have to rush right out and spend it. So that seems like a worthwhile course to take on the radios forward. And then you can decide whether it's worth it on the turnout gear.
Can I ask a question on turnout gear? Because when I was researching it before, normally there's a tracking system to it that sort of monitors each piece on its own way. I mean, are we really confident that, and remember, I was going on the 10-year line for a long time. So this is kind of new information to me on the actual condition of each one. So do we have a good sense or can we work in some room in this, I guess the motion, Mr. Abus, that if we can do a quick analysis, whether it's worth it to still leave that open, if there's still X amount of sets that needed. I just want to make sure we don't lose the opportunity, because again, I think it's important we get into a cycle, because at this point, it seems like we're in a big cycle where all of a sudden everything's going to come basically due for replacement at the same time.
Roger, didn't she say that this grant would be available again in June or July?
Federal grants are available quarterly. The federal period begins October 1. And so October, November, December is their first quarter. And so generally by their 3rd and 4th quarter, they're either getting low on money or because they've had a rush of really good applications, or they're sitting on a big fat pot of money because they've had insufficient applications. It's been my experience that in the third and fourth quarters of federal funding cycles that they throw money at projects.
So
They're
you're
more
suggesting
picky.
that maybe we wait.
Well, I
we-
heard the upcoming application is for the third, and then there would be an application in summer for the fourth quarter.
So Roger, to answer your question, I mean, we can amend the motion if you need to. So you can either decide to go for both of them, to go for the radios only, or to authorize both if the facts show that it's worth going for the turnout gear. And if not, then you just go for the radios.
Yeah, if I'm allowed to do that, it sounds like, just from listening to everybody, we're motivated to at least do the radios for sure. And then it seems like we might be on the cusp of needing a little more information to know whether we want to do the turnout gear now or wait for the next quarter or whatever. And if we're allowed to approve it with some analysis, help me out, Mr. I don't know if we can do that. I'm open to that. So I'd like to make a motion for both with that caveat. And if Mr. Shelton or Terry come up and say, yeah, we can wait, if that's allowed, that makes sense to me. But I'm if I'm doing that right or wrong, just let me know. I'm trying to figure this out.
I think that's fine. I think it's a clear motion that if you want to move forward on the radios and designate the acting chief to review the criteria for the turnout gear, and if he thinks we would qualify, that we could move forward with that. But if he doesn't, that we would postpone that decision.
And Chief, I assume you would hear or work with Alma, because she said I think she had some forms or some kind of way to help go through that. Is that correct?
Correct,
So-
Roger. Yeah.
Okay,
I'll get,
awesome. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And she needs a commitment for the radio grant before a week from tomorrow, in order for us to receive the discount.
So I guess the motion would be we approve the appropriation for the potential funding, for sure for the radios, partly for the turnout gear, and Mr. Shelton and Mr. Timmers would kind of have to do, or whoever else would have to support that to make sure we get it in line. Is that? I think that's right.
Yeah, I think that's fine. They'll review the criteria to make sure that it's worthwhile pursuing the turnout gear.
Yeah. So Terry, can you get somebody to work with you on that, and then you and I can get together when I get back from vacation?
Yep.
Okay.
I have it done.
So we had a motion. So I had a motion, then we need a second on this, Alan, correct? Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So roll call, please.
Mr. Lamar,
Yes.
Mr. Lancer,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Ms. Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Van Harn.
Yes.
So we will work on the radios and get that grant started, and then after I get with Terry, and we'll decide on the turnout gear. And again, Roger, I'd like to thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Great
Thanks,
job.
Roger.
That's
Thank
a
you.
part-time job, Roger. Thank
Yeah.
you. And you already have about 4, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I did spend a lot of time on it, but
It looks like it.
I'm very I'm kind of moved by this group, and I'm happy to support, and I'm getting a lot of firefighters. Anyway, it's been great for me in its own way. And then Mr. Shelton, do you let Alma know, or do I know, or let her? How does that work? Just
Since you've got it going and you've got it started, if you want to go ahead and Alan, do we have to get an ordinance or a resolution together on this, or just?
No, the amount of
Motion.
expenditure doesn't require that. The motion's fine. I think we're good to go. Roger can let her know that we're going to proceed on the radios for sure, and that we're let her know in a couple of days on the turnout gear.
Tell her if she has any questions for me, she can just contact me anytime she wants to.
yeah, I'll put her in touch with you first, Mr. Shelton, and then Terry will get involved.
Just a heads up,
So,
I will be
thank
out
you.
of town after Friday afternoon for a week. From Sunday to Sunday, I will be down in Hilton Head. So I will have my laptop with me. So you can send it to me. Okay.
Okay, I should be able to contact her either yet tonight or for sure in the morning. So I'll get right on and let her know. Okay.
When
you.
Roger, I suggest that you do it by email. That way you have a document
Okay.
that we made it before, that we made a commitment based on a motion at this evening's meeting that was approved, that is in writing before the April 30th discount deadline.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay.
That's good advice.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you again, Roger. Any new business?
Yeah, I have one thing. It's come to my attention that the oven at Station 47 is not working. I don't know if where that kind of expense falls within our budget, but it's something that I think we should look at either getting fixed or replacing the oven, since the firefighters essentially live there while they're on shift.
Andy,
Yes.
that was taken care of. There's
Okay,
a new oven, there's a new oven upstairs.
Great. Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other new business? On to the fire chief's report.
All right. I was just got a text also, Andy, just to let you know, the hood and the gloves are 3 to 4 years old. We got those through a, I think workers' comp. We got a, got us a reimbursement, and so we used that to get new hoods and gloves for everybody. So just to let you know on that. Okay. Going back to, I don't know, it's probably old now, but I mean, I did send out an email to the East Group chiefs. I got 7 responses back. Of the 7, 5 of them write their own grants, and 2 have stopped putting in for grants because they weren't receiving anything. So take that for what it's worth. On the radios, just to let you know, I did check into a couple vendors for the Kenwood radios and for the Motorola. The Motorola are like 2 times more expensive than the Kenwoods. There is a couple of departments that are using the Kenwoods, and they haven't had any problems whatsoever with those. So when we get into that further, I'll be getting a hold of a couple of you people.
You know what the cost is on them?
For the Kenwood, it's $12.44 a radio, and for the Motorola, it's $22.08.98 for the Motorola's.
Okay, so
So-
that being said, back to the discussion we had, 8 radios at $2,200 a piece. So we're looking at probably just shy of $2,000. That would be
Well-
our,
And that's just the radios. That's not including the mics that come with them being programmed. There's going to have to be a charging unit for each station for these radios. So that price, that $22.08, is just for the radio. That's
so
not for.
with that grant, would that cover all that, or do we just on the grant, is that just for the radios or what?
Well, I'll have to get I'll get the prices for you, and I'll let you know on 8 radios and whatever comes with it.
Okay. So
All
the
right.
radios are $2,200, and then whatever cost it is for the other stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And if you find out, can you let us know?
Yep, I will. Yep.
Right.
Okay, insurance. Our medical insurance plan is up for renewal in July. I was advised by our rep that the premium is going up 30%. That is due to the number of employees that we currently have. We can either stay with that plan or look into something else. I had the rep. She's going to put out the bid with 3 other companies to see if she can get something lower to lower our premiums. But that takes about a week. So I won't know anything for maybe a week, week and a half. So.
That is for the plan that we have today, correct?
Correct.
Did you check to see if there are other plans out there that we could go to if we?
That's what she's going.
That's what she's doing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
she's putting them out the bid. Now, it's just to let the board know, if you wanted to do a January 1st to go with the CBA, you need to start something probably in September to make sure that you can get the insurance renewal on that 1/1.
now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, but when Jim went through this last year, didn't they say that we couldn't get a year and a half or a half year extension on that, or?
From my memory, a longer contract was pursued within discussions or whatever Horan might have been working on to try to match up the insurance renewal date to coincide with a CBA date, January 1st, and was not able to get that. I don't remember what reasons, but they were not willing to extend the current contract. Maybe they would have done a shorter term one for a newer amount or a different percentage, but would not extend the current one for the same amount. So, but I wasn't involved in the process. I just vaguely remember some discussions from past minutes, and we can look those up from a couple years ago. But I do seem to recollect that it did not work out for some reason.
But Terry, can you check with our representative to see if we can do that?
Hey, I'll do my best, Carson. Our rep is on maternity leave, so I'm working with somebody else. So, but let me check with her. I'll give her a call tomorrow and see what we can do about that. See if we can't get in.
Yeah, see if we can get it extended just for the 6 months or whatever, and then hopefully that we can work everything in for a yearly renewal or the renewal. So.
All right, sounds good.
I will add so this is something the board can have as far as information goes, depending on what the broker at Horan may come back with as far as other options. Acting Chief Timbers did share with me the renewal and what the cost would be. So looking at our current budget, if that was the only option to do, just wanted to throw some numbers out so you can see how such a high increase would affect the budget. So this year we have $272,000, just a little bit over that, budgeted for medical. That amount includes both what we pay in premiums to United Healthcare, who is our current company, and the amount of HRA reimbursements that are given back to the employees when they turn receipts in. And those are all the expenses you usually see every month from Navia. In the current collective bargaining agreement allows for 100% reimbursement of that. So January
to what? I'm sorry, 100% reimbursement up to what?
$5,200.
So the HRA is $5,200.
That's the out of pocket or the deductible in the current plan. So that is what each employee, except for anyone that's on a single plan. So a family plan is that, a single plan is $2,800, but I think we might have one person on that. But so all out of pocket expenses or their out of pocket deductible can be reimbursed by turning in receipts for that amount for each person every year. And so that amount's budgeted in addition to our premiums to the health insurance company. Worst case scenario, we budget the maximum amount of HRA reimbursements. Of course, we've never had everybody turn in 100%, but that is what we do budget just in case. So, so far, so January through June, we know what our expense will be to United Healthcare because that's our current monthly bill. That's going to come out a little over $104,000. If the district was to renew with United Healthcare with this 30% increase, July through December would be $116,000 or a little bit over that. plugging in the worst case scenario HRA reimbursements, which might take all of our full-time employees times the $5,200 or the $2,800 for a single person, we budgeted $64,400 in HRA reimbursements for a year. Again, it's not likely that we'll spend that much, but if we did, that totals everything together to $284,600. That's about $12,500 over what we have budgeted in 2021 for medical expenses. So that's just to let the board know what things might look like if they did go with a 30% increase and we did for some reason have to reimburse fully the HRA. The budget did originally include a chief's position at some point this year, probably for a longer period of time that will in actuality happen. So there is a little bit of wiggle room in there. That's why I was actually thought that $12,000 was going to be a higher figure when I calculated it all. But again, just wanted to make sure the board had that in their minds as information comes in and the chief shares what other plans might be available.
I'm sorry, I lost you at 116,000. Did you say July through?
December. So
Got
that
it.
would be
Okay.
what the United Healthcare or the premium would be at the 30% increase for the employees that we have at that point. We have lost one. So as you remember, Lieutenant Brian Timmers left and we have not replaced his position. So we are technically down one employee from the first several months of this year. But yes, July through December, we'd spent $116,000.
Additionally, on top of what is already budgeted?
No, $116,000. So I'll read that again. So January through June, we will spend $104,000.
Okay.
July through December, $116,000. And then if we were to reimburse 100% of HRA,
64.
that's 64,400. So that all those three figures together total $284,600 odd dollars. And that figure is $12,500 over our current budget this year of
$272.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Gary, when you get this information back from our contact, I think the board should be involved in the decisions on which way we go with the medical. So with that being said, I was going to suggest that since Melissa and you and Andy are meeting anyhow with the CBA, if you can get that information so they can discuss and report to the board, because I'm assuming that we're in a time crunch right now to get this done, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So if you can meet like that, so we can get that, get the board involved to see what route we want to take on the health insurance. So,
Right.
And Andy, if you guys get it set up, if you do it week after next and you want me there, let me know and I'll be there.
Yeah. So Melissa, our next meeting is next Thursday. Is that correct?
I believe it's tomorrow, but I have a conflict with the commissioners, so I would like to move it. If you don't mind, I could move it to early next week. I can maybe propose a couple of times to you and Chief Timmers tomorrow. I was just added to a agenda tomorrow afternoon, and
that makes sense to me.
Yeah, we have to.
That makes more sense anyhow, because I doubt that we'll have the information from Haran back by tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if maybe we can check with Mayor Shelton and see what his availability is and work that in there as well.
Well, I'd like
so he's gone next week. So we
okay.
we could take this up in the CBA working group.
Yeah.
Informal working group, and then we could report back to Mr. Shelton when he returns the first week of May.
Okay.
And then be ready to come and then have conversations with other one-on-one with other board members, and then be prepared to come back and take action at the May meeting. Chief Timmers, what is the deadline for renewal? And if we miss the deadline, will they do what's called a binder? Will they do a binder and extend it, give us like extra 30 days? They just bind it?
I'll check and see. Melissa.
Okay. We've had that happen before on our property liability insurance where there was an issue and they gave us a binder for 30 days and to pass the legislation. And then that 30 days becomes part of the subsequent 6 months or 12 months. It's not like a gap 30 days. You're basically moving into what would be your first month, but all the paperwork is not in place because of some type of a reason. So what I would appreciate so that we can make sure that we handle this correctly in CBA is to know what their deadline is for the renewal, drop
Okay.
dead deadline, all the materials in.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And then one more thing, Mayor.
Mhm.
Wrong. Is that both of the Tahoes over Station 47 have been recalled because of the airbag situation. Lieutenant Thompson is going to have those scheduled next Tuesday to take them over to, I believe it's the GMC dealer over on Ridge. So they're going to be taking care of those next week. So, and then if there is any comments, questions about the run log, I will answer them.
No questions? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
No problem. Oh, one thing. I just got a text from Lieutenant Thompson. They were wanting to know when we're going to start meeting with them in reference to the CBA.
I can't answer that question right now.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Any other questions? Again, thanks, Chief. Board of Trustees discussion. Anything? Okay. Room for adjournment. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
All right,
you.
good night.